This is KHTS News Director Devon Miller live with Brandii Grace, candidate for Assembly. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So, first off, for those listening out there in the Santa Clarita Valley that aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're running.
Well, for those who are just listening and can't see me, to give you the mental picture, I'm constantly being confused with Katie Hill. In fact, the first time I met her was when she went to one of our Dems clubs and announced that she was running, and Christy Smith announced as well. And then a man came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, good luck on your congressional race." I'm like, no, that's that other blonde lady. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, your state assembly race." I'm like, no, that's the other blonde lady. So continuing the trend of blonde ladies doing well in our district. Yeah, I'm from Porter Ranch. I'm on the neighborhood council there, so I've already been dealing a lot with politics that side and working hard to shut down Aliso and help with the homelessness issue. I have a very different background from most of the others because as a child, I'm from a military family, but I was raised by my Air Force grandmother, Air Force veteran grandmother. She and I were homeless repeatedly in my childhood. So having to pull myself out to become a business owner and a college instructor and a STEM educator, I've been fighting hard on the homelessness issue because I have a multi-leveled perspective of it. So that's really one of my big issues. That and of course the environment shutting down LISO and education because I have a special needs 4-year-old. So those are my areas that I really focus on.
Wow. So on homelessness, with your experience, and again with Katie Hill, again with a lot of experience in that topic
Yeah, right.
as well. What are some of your goals to try and tackle the issue of homelessness?
So one of the biggest things we have to do is get more people to understand that homelessness isn't just one issue. We have a tendency in politics and in government to act like everyone who's homeless is the same, but they're really, really not. You can't actually treat somebody who's dying on the street with a mental illness the same way you treat a family of 4 that's just starting to live in their car because they lost their job, or an LGBTQ youth who was kicked out of their home because they came out of the closet, or a veteran who's been struggling for years of our system. So we have to have systems in place that recognize all of those. And one of the things I really like is out of Silicon Valley, I'm a tech nerd, but out of Silicon Valley, they created a predictive model that's actually very accurate in discerning whether or not somebody is going to become chronically homeless. They've been looking at how they can use that to get more funding into higher risk individuals. But I think that's only a part of the answer because what this model has done is literally hand us, here are the factors that create homelessness. So we can tackle that from the state and federal, even local levels. Because it's things that you may not first think about, like, have you ever been involved in the foster care system? Have you ever been involved in jail? Have you ever, like, all these different systems that come together and create problems. So it's way more than what we normally hear about just, oh, let's build more housing. That's a factor of it, but it's nowhere near the complete picture. So just getting people on board that idea, that's a big win for us.
And kind of on this issue of homelessness, you mentioned veterans issues as well as
Yes.
mental health and drug
Yes.
addiction. What are some of your potential, not solves, but potential ways to combat the issue of the opioid epidemic and other drug issues in this district?
Yeah, I believe the opioid epidemic and drug use in general, we have to understand where that comes from. It's very uncommon for somebody to say, "I'm bored today. I'm going to try opioids. I'm going to try crack." Heroin sounds like fun. I mean, you get a little of that from high school, college, but the addicts, they're dealing with other issues. They turn to that usually as a last resort. For one thing, it's expensive, but they turn to it usually because there's a huge problem that's just happened. Oftentimes we hear stories of death in the family of a child or a spouse because they've become homeless and they're trying to deal with chronic pain. Pain is actually the number one reason, whether it's mental health or physical pain, because a high number of people who are on even something as simple as marijuana, we find they're self-medicating for undiagnosed mental health issues. So we need to put a lot more funding and focus into expanding our state's mental health services. And there's a lot of broken areas that we need to fix. Everything from making sure that the insurance companies are better supporting it. And when you say, I need this mental health service, disallow them from saying, oh, well, we've decided better, we're not going to cover it, or here's a list of providers that may not even have up-to-date providers or ones that are available for what you need. There's just a slew of things we need to do on that side.
And do you believe that the rising cost of healthcare in general is a factor of why people aren't
Oh, yeah.
seeking mental health?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the rising cost of healthcare has caused so many problems. We just saw a statistic came out in this last year. 60% of people who declare personal bankruptcy cite medical and doctor's bills as one of their main causes. It's so insane. I'm One of my key policies is actually I want to do what we've seen in other countries and in other states even that's worked, which is cap the medical costs at the hospital level. People don't know that, like, those little plastic cups that you get to use to the restaurants hand you ketchup in that for free, they charge you an average of 10 cents per cup in the hospital to do the same thing and hand you some pills. The disposable gloves that I can get for 20 cents a pair at Costco, they'll charge up to $53. Sorry, I said 10 cents for the cup. $10
Wow.
for that little free cup you got. It's that kind of ridiculous overcharging, and it leads to all the stories that we constantly hear about, and people are delaying the ability to get seen. And with the coronavirus, when I listened to your your last session, it's a huge problem. We have the mayor of San Francisco just came out and declared an emergency, and the federal government right now is debating whether we're doing enough, putting in something like $5 billion into it. But imagine what's going to happen if somebody says, I'm sick, but I don't have the money to go to the doctor because they're homeless, or because they're an immigrant and they're worried about the public charge, or because they're just a struggling single mom. We need them to go to the hospital and discern that they have that, because we don't want a huge outbreak simply because people were too poor to be identified.
And would you go as far as maybe as a state public option, or even Medicare for all on the California level, to kind of combat this issue?
Yeah, I think those are really viable solutions, and I'm in support of anything that helps to cover everybody at that level. I mean, we need to start with capping the costs before we can even really have a lot of those conversations, because we keep seeing how much it's going to cost us only when we look at the current level of expenses. And once we have something in place, whether it's state or federal, we can bring down the costs, but we don't need to wait. We can cap them right now. Like West Virginia and Maryland has already done it very successfully. So let's go in and tell them, if you can't have this hospital charging $7,000 for a C-section and this hospital charging $70,000, which has happened. So let's go in and regulate at that level, and then we can start talking about what the real cost is of moving to public options and Medicare for all and all those other solutions.
Great, thank you. So we're here with Brandii Grace, candidate for Assembly. You mentioned that you're on the Porter Ranch Council. How will that experience on the council translate to the Assembly?
Oh, wonderfully. I mean, aside from the fact that I've been working with our state representatives for a long time, I've even written a bill to help increase funding for ADA playground equipment in our schools that Christy Smith had agreed to take forward. Really, the thing that's missing in a lot of politics, we see so much divisiveness, and we need to come together and talk to everybody. And as an elected in the neighborhood council, I'm already used to dealing with people who do not agree with me on any fundamental level. People who come up and the first thing they do is they hate me, and they're like, how dare you, yada, yada, yada. And I listen to them, and I respect them, and I talk to them, and I've had some of them leave hugging me, because I know it's more about getting us all together to work as a community to solve our problems, rather than getting into ideological slap fights, you know? We all get to choose a letter by our name when we register to vote. And as a candidate, you out there as a voter get to judge me based on the fact that there's a D next to my name. But I, as an elected, do not have the right to judge you as a person because of the letter next to your name, or the color of your skin, or the neighborhood you live in. I have to listen to you as an individual and respect and listen to the issues that you bring to me and the positions you have, and take that into consideration.
Great. And one of the key issues that you've worked on the council is the Aliso Canyon gas leak.
Yes.
And that is in this this district. So what are your solutions to kind of like keep that from opening up again?
Well, it's already open. In fact, production has increased significantly, which we hear a lot of people concerned that if we shut down Aliso, it might drive up the gas prices. But in fact, gas prices are going up while production is going up. And we we honestly have a lot of energy experts telling us we do not need Aliso Canyon to cover our current energy needs. Going forward, I want to fund new renewable energy infrastructures from the state level so that we can have more energy as we expand. But we need to shut down Aliso immediately. And that's only one of the many environmental things. Santa Susana Field Labs needs to be cleaned up to background radiation. The Whitaker Bergmite area and the Simi Valley area both have contamination in their groundwater. It needs to get cleaned up. The Chiquita Canyon issues, which I heard they're one of your sponsors, so I'll be a little kind about that. But there's a lot of these issues that are impacting our neighbors, our community, and even our businesses. People in Porter Ranch have told me, business owners, that nobody wants to come out there to eat or to shop because they're scared of Aliso. So we need to have people that are willing to stand up and say, no, we need to fix this now.
And some of the residents in the Porter Ranch area have reported some health effects due to the gas leak.
Me too.
Exactly. You are a Porter Ranch resident.
Yeah.
Do you support any action against like SoCal Edison or to get cost for those health treatments?
There's a lawsuit ongoing, and I'm very supportive. It's the biggest thing I need to do is talk to the governor and work just like Christy Smith has and Henry Stern has and all the others in our area. Even Republicans in our area are working together with us to push for the shutdown. That's the most immediate thing. But yeah, I want to help my neighbors. I mean, I've had nosebleeds. My 4-year-old son has had nosebleeds. My 83-year-old grandmother's had nosebleeds, and we get sick a lot more often. And we have what we call the Aliso cough. It's bad out there. I mean, when the fires hit and Aliso caught fire, I was evacuated, and I remember carrying my 4-year-old son out to the car, and it was snowing ash on us. And I brushed it away from his forehead, and all I could think about was, I can brush it from his face, but I can't brush it from his lungs. So we absolutely need to shut that down and eliminate that disaster before it gets worse. Because you may not know, but only one well had a leak last time. There are over 100 wells there, and all of them are on a major fault line. If we have one bad earthquake, we're going to have more than 100 times the problem we saw. And it was already the world's largest methane leak.
So we're here with Brandii Grace, candidate for Assembly. So we're running out of time, but is there anything, any major topics that you support that we haven't had a chance to address today?
There's so many, honestly. I want to fully fund our education system. I want to help make sure that our commutes are smaller by helping our digital infrastructure be better so that we are better prepared for a 21st century economy, and push for more work from home and work commute situations, because a lot of people do not like sitting in rush hour, and I'm one of them. I want to better support our veterans through our CalVet system. There's just a lot. And if anybody out there wants to know more of my positions, you can go to my website, which is gracefораssembly.com, or you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/gracefораssembly, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram and everything else.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it too.